idea about the sea, that it was this dangerous, chaotic kind of thing. In an original, good, a creation that was very good, mankind would have been totally separate from that. It wouldn't have posed a danger, is what I'm getting at. So it seems like we're going back to that, back Earth, but above it too. Now, most of you are probably familiar with what's called the canopy theory, and there's different variations of it, but the main idea is that in the original creation, there could have been some type of expanse or some type of covering around the whole Earth, and the Earth was like an enclosed system. It could have been ice, or it could have been, condensed water or mist or something like that. Sort of like the atmosphere now, except water, more dense. And that could have filtered out all sorts of, harmful rays that come from the sun. I mean, the Earth would have operated totally differently. Now, the reason that we have a North and South Pole now is because of how the sun hits the Earth, the way that the Earth rotates around the sun. The equator gets more of the sun than the poles do, so the poles are colder. But if you had something like a covering over the whole Earth, inside that covering, you would expect it to kind of be temperate all over, because all of the harmful rays would be filtered out, but the whole thing would eventually become warm and temperate. There would be no place for the heat to escape out into. This is probably a bad example, but you can think of the planet Venus right now. The whole thing is a hellscape, but all around it, it's a hellscape. Like all around Venus, it's a hellscape. That could be something that would be beneficial, having that uniformity around the Earth, and that could have been achieved with a type of covering of some kind over the Earth, and the sun warming that covering. The covering would have then warmed the Earth, so the whole thing could have been temperate. And it seems like that's what Genesis is explaining, and it seems like that could possibly be what we have to look forward to in the future, in the new heavens and new earth. And, the new heaven and new earth is really just a restoration of the original plan, of God's original creation. So with all that being said, could we start to see some birth pangs of that? For one thing, could we start getting some evidence? Could we actually start getting some real evidence of this type of Earth, which we're definitely going to talk about because there are some examples of that. But then could there also be some changes already occurring that are like birth pangs pointing us towards the new heaven and new earth? Things like a pole shift, could that be a birth pang to something that needs to take place in order for the new heavens and new earth to operate in the way that it would? So that's the big question for tonight. The first thing that I want to look at, we talked about the magnetic poles moving. There is evidence that the whole Earth at one time was temperate. What was an actual temperate environment all around? Scientists have just unearthed traces of an ancient rainforest in Antarctica. And if you remember, we've done videos on this in the past that you can go back in the archives and check out. But there have been some strange, seemingly structural things found on Antarctica, some strange structures. Could they have been naturally caused? Sure. But if there was a time where the Earth was temperate, is it reasonable to ask the question, could there have been a time where human beings actually inhabited these regions, such as Antarctica? And if so, what would that have looked like? Would there be evidence left over of that? Could we possibly find pyramids or something like that? So there's been recent evidence unearthed showing that there was an ancient rainforest in Antarctica, which that alone blows this whole idea out of the water that the way the Earth is now, it's how it's always been. There's even a prophecy about that. I think it's 2 Peter, maybe, if I remember right, or maybe it's 1 Peter, but it talks about how people will think that the way the Earth is now, it's always been that way, and they'll deny things like the flood and stuff like that. So, and with the flood, the whole canopy theory thing, the idea is that with with whatever happened to cause the flood. I mean, it was God, but whatever natural processes God enacted to cause the flood, probably had to do with some earthquakes and the earth breaking apart and letting all the water come up and onto the land. But also that firmament, that canopy of water or ice could have come crashing down. Now that's if you believe in the canopy theory. I'm not even necessarily endorsing that. I'm just saying that's one of many views that some people believe. It very well could be true. Who knows? We weren't there, but there is evidence that the Earth was temperate everywhere, which is amazing to think about. So let's look at this article from Science Alert. Scientists have unearthed traces of an ancient rainforest in Antarctica. This just came out. Since time immemorial, Earth's poles have resembled frozen wastelands. Life can and does exist there, but there are sound reasons why humans and most other animals cling to the safety of more hospitable climates closer to the equator. They were not always wastelands, though. We know that in our planet's ancient past, conditions were vastly different. In the mid-Cretaceous period, about 90 million years ago, dense concentrations of atmospheric CO2 would have created much hotter global temperatures, melting polar ice sheets, and sending sea levels soaring up to 170 meters or 558 feet higher than they are today. Now, again, sea levels and all this, this is assuming that the Earth operated back then the same way that it does now. And I don't necessarily think that we can assume that. And again, if it did operate differently, that would throw off their numbers. 90 million years ago, it would completely throw off their numbers. They would have to create brand new models, and what those models would say about the age of the Earth, who knows? But they would have to factor that in. What would the South Pole have looked like in a world like that? Thanks to stunning scientific discovery, we have our answer. In 2017, during an expedition aboard the RV Polarstern in the Amundsen Sea, researchers drilled deep into the ground underneath the seabed of West Antarctica, close to the location of the Pine Island and Thwaites glaciers, and only about 900 kilometers or 560 miles away from the South Pole. And here's a picture here. This is a simplified overview map of the South Polar region at time of deposition 90 million years ago. So it says what they pulled up, particularly at depths around 30 meters, starkly contrasted with the sediment composition resting closer to the surface. Geologist Johann Klages from the Alfred Wegener Institute, Helmholtz Center for Polar and Marine Research in Germany, said, quote, during the initial shipboard assessments, the unusual coloration of the sediment layer quickly caught our attention. The first analysis indicated that at a depth of 27 to 30 meters or 88 to 98 feet below the ocean floor, we had found a layer originally formed on land, not in the ocean. End quote. So they were in uncharted territory in more ways than one. No one had ever pulled a Cretaceous period sample out of the ground from such a southern point on the globe. Even so, the researchers can't have been prepared for what closer examination with X-ray computed tomography, CT scans, would reveal. Back on land, scans described an intricate network of fossilized plant roots. Microscopic analyses also found evidence of pollen and spores, all pointing to the preserved remains of an ancient rainforest that existed in Antarctica approximately 90 million years ago, eons before the landscape was transformed into a barren province of ice. So they found this evidence. Paleoecologist Ulrich Salzman from Northumbria University in the UK said, quote, the numerous plant remains indicate that the coast of West Antarctica was, back then, a dense, temperate, swampy forest. Actually lend a lot of credence to what the Bible has to say about our ancient past. Now, of course, scientists typically aren't going to admit that or even take that at all seriously. They're going to think that it has nothing to do with the Bible. But how did the writer of Genesis know about that? I mean, isn't that strange? That would be a pretty good guess if that's all it was. And there are other things too. But if you have the most the least hospitable part of the planet, and you discover in its ancient past that it was actually more like a rainforest, an extremely habitable environment. Shouldn't that tell you something? What would around the equator look like? Because it would stand to reason if the Earth if it always operated like this, then it would stand to reason if the poles got that warm, then the equator would have had to have been scorching hot. It should have been desert all the way around the equator. I mean, and how would that happen? Was the Earth closer to the sun? Was the sun hotter back then? It would have been inhospitable land. But what's strange about that is they've actually discovered, like in Egypt, they've discovered that not that long ago, it was like a rainforest there too. And this wasn't even that long ago. I mean, even in biblical times, so even just a few thousand years ago, there were forests and it was more temperate, even just that. So how much more even earlier? So if they're finding remains of ancient rainforest even around the equator, that would suggest there was a time in Earth's history where it all was temperate, because again, Earth was created as a home for man. And that's the environment that we thrive best in, that type of temperate climate. That was what the whole Earth was at one point. So it proves that the Earth didn't always operate the way that it's operating now. And I would say it lends evidence that we're living in a fallen world. We're living in a fallen state that is not completely ideal. There are parts that are better than others, but it's not completely ideal all the way around. So that's really interesting. Something else that came out too, they've actually found some ancient, strange creatures that they discovered below Antarctica ice, and I just thought this was kind of an interesting story to actually get a look at what some of these creatures that God created even back then, like what they looked like, and they actually found some of these living too. So it says. This is from Express. Researchers from Northern Illinois University spent 3 months probing the Ross ice shelf, the world's largest floating ice sheet. Using a hot water drill, they blasted 740 meters into an area known as the grounding zone. The team then took core samples and lowered a camera into a 400 square meter marine cavity to expose a diverse ecosystem. Reed Shearer, a micropaleontologist from the university's team, revealed he was surprised by what they spotted. He said in 2015, quote, "The central focus of the research was to try and get some actual physical constraints on what the ice sheet looked like over time and what it's doing right now. It's a very mobile environment down there. The bottom is changing constantly. And so the things that we saw are all very mobile organisms, things that swim and some things that crawl," end quote. This bizarre find was made 750 meters. Here's one picture. I think there's more down here. Yeah, right here. Look at that. This the bizarre creatures were discovered, so you can get a look at that. So he says, obviously they are getting enough nutrition that they can thrive. So these things are still living down there. Some of the little crustacean-like creatures called arthropods that we saw swam quite quickly and were quite active. So these things are still active in this environment. It was the furthest south the fish had ever been seen, but fellow researcher Ross Powell said the ice core samples collected will also allow them to get a glimpse into the history of the Earth. He said, quote, "What we found is that these are very sensitive areas to the stability of how dynamic the ice is and how fast the ice may react in increases in melting, both from the ocean and the atmosphere." So there are certain creatures called extremophiles, and they can live in just extreme climates. I mean, even like meteors and just harsh climates like deserts or Antarctica and stuff like that. So what's strange is that it seems like whenever whatever cataclysm happened, let's just say it was the flood, or let's say it was the original fall, because I mean there's more than one cataclysm in our ancient past. When the original fall occurred, whatever that cataclysm looked like worldwide or universe-wide even, Only some creatures were able to survive that once these temperate climates turned cold. These are some of them, and look at that. So I mean, these things, this species, these arthropods have been down there this whole time since the original creation. It's mind blowing. So it's really strange to think about that. This evidence keeps coming up. And don't worry, guys, we will get to Q&A in the chat. I'm just glancing and seeing somebody say, hey, it's okay to have a difference of opinion. No need to be like mean and nasty about it. Let me guess. Somebody's mad that I don't believe that the Earth is flat. Let me just take a wild guess. All right, we'll get to more stuff here. There was another thing too, and of course, there's always going to be a political agenda around some of this stuff. So there's a new an ozone hole over the Arctic, and of course there's going to be those that are saying that this is because we're pumping CO2 into the air and it's climate change and it's only man-made and it's nothing else. But actually it seems like in this case the evidence seems to lend support to this being just a natural occurrence that happens from time to time. Why do we have these ozone holes? Maybe it's because the atmosphere that we have right now was never intended. It was never created. It was never intended to shield the Earth in the way that it does. But maybe it was meant to be a secondary line of defense, either above or underneath some type of enclosure. Once that enclosure was gone, now the atmosphere has to take the brunt of it, and maybe it can't keep up. Maybe it can't always keep up. So sometimes there's going to be these ozone holes that pop up, and a lot of this is used politically as scare tactics. I remember when I was a kid in like elementary school, learning about the ozone hole over Chile that was going to absolutely decimate the entire region, and it wasn't going to be livable, and people still live there today. So, and that was close to 30 years ago. So, people still live there today. But so I wanted to talk about this, not because of the political climate change stuff, but because maybe what's going on is more of a natural process. I don't doubt that the Earth is warming up, but maybe there's a process in place here. And maybe this process is a birth pang, or is leading us towards the new heavens and new earth that we read about when Jesus finally restores everything. So it says, why this rare, huge ozone hole over the Arctic is puzzling scientists. So it says, last week, new research declared the once worrying fissure in the ozone layer at the South Pole to be largely vanquished. But in March, a new hole opened in the ozone, this time on the other side of the world in the atmosphere above the Arctic. The hole will likely set a new benchmark for the largest ozone hole ever recorded in the North Pole. Fortunately, even though it's 3 times the size of Greenland, the tear is not likely to last long or be a danger to human health, reports Alexandra Wheats in Nature. Ozone is a gas made up of a trio of oxygen atoms in the stratosphere about 12 to 18 miles above the Earth's surface. A thin layer of ozone absorbs a portion of the ultraviolet radiation emanating from the sun. Now again, think about this. What if the ozone, what if our current atmosphere wasn't intended for this? What if there was something that was originally intended for it? Water itself filters out a whole ton of stuff. It filters out so much that they build neutrino detectors in like frozen climates, because the ice, the water will filter everything out, and only things like neutrinos can get through. That's how good of a job just something like ice can do at filtering out like all these like harmful things. And they are harmful. Ultraviolet radiation, it says, damages living cells by mutating their DNA, and can also cause the proteins that give cells their structure and unravel and misbehave. There's a theory too. This could be why ancient man, if the ages in Genesis, everybody lived to hundreds and hundreds of years old, if that's to be taken literally, this could explain how that happened, and why it took a while for just the human body to degrade through generations to the point now we only live like 80 years if we're lucky. But back then, if you had a climate like this, where all of this ultraviolet radiation and other types of radiation was filtered out through some type of ice shield or something, then our living cells wouldn't have been mutated, and the proteins and structures, the things that cause aging, would not have unraveled and misbehaved, at least not as quickly. And maybe before the fall, it wouldn't have happened at all. But then after the fall, it still could have. Now, because there would have been a time after the fall, but before the flood. So there was a time in between there where this ice shield thing could have still been up. And that could explain why people lived so long. They were able to, because they didn't get as much of this harmful radiation, as much of this stuff that the human body isn't meant to absorb. I mean, there's a lot of leading theories today that says that that's actually what causes aging. Even something as strange as quantum tunneling that occurs in the sun. The sun wouldn't be able to shine without this thing called quantum tunneling. That even that type of process is not causes, but contributes to the aging process, and that type of thing wouldn't have been around, or wouldn't have existed in the ancient past with this type of thing filtering everything out. So I thought that was really interesting, but it says humans get a taste of the dangers of the solar radiation in form of sunburns and skin cancer. A depleted ozone would mean getting sunburnt in just a few minutes, as well as a dramatic increase in rates of skin cancer. But no ozone layer would likely render the Earth's surface impossible. So no way to survive. So. Again, this is talking about these holes that appear, but what if the only reason that there are these ozone holes, and I'm not saying I'm not getting into the do humans contribute to this at all? I'm not getting into that. What I'm saying is, what if that's a natural process, or what if that process is because the ozone wasn't meant to be able to filter out all this stuff from the sun and just from the universe, all these cosmic rays, and because it's taking on more than it can handle, at times these holes open up. I mean, could it be something like that? I mean, it's like stretching a cloth. If you stretch it enough, you're going to get holes that appear. So that very well, it could be the case. Not saying it is, not saying it isn't, but I think it's interesting. Speaking of Antarctica, there's also been an undiscovered island that was just discovered because of melting glaciers. Now, again, with the climate change stuff, I do believe glaciers are to some extent probably melting. I don't think it's as extreme as we're told. I don't think it's as big of a problem as we're told, because there have been a lot of lies around that have been proven false. But I kind of am on the side that these are like natural cycles that occur. Anyway, so but those cycles again could be birth pangs that happen more and more frequently up until the birth or the return of Jesus, when everything is restored. So there was an undiscovered island that has now been discovered. So a new island has been discovered off the coast of Antarctica thanks to melting glaciers. Until now, the granite island has been completely covered in ice. It now sits above sea level, and was spotted by scientists from the Thwaites Glacier Offshore Research Project. So there were 4 researchers listed here. They described what they saw, and this just happened February 26th, and it was just reported on recently. It only measures 250 meters long, but it deserved the name all the same. They called it Sif Island. And there was a few photos of the new discovery down here, I believe. But it says Wellner shared a few photos on her Twitter account. Quote, after being the first visitors, we can now confirm that Sif Island is made of granite and that it is covered by a remnant ice shelf and a few seals, she tweeted. The island is still mostly covered in ice. Rescue team stay strand. Oh, that's a totally different story. Here we go. So here's some pictures here. You got some pictures down here of it. Very interesting stuff. Now, the reason that I wanted to share this is if new islands are being discovered, what else might be discovered in Antarctica? If things are melting and being revealed, what if there's a whole ancient history that we don't know about, we haven't been told about, we as humanity have forgotten about it, and this melting ice is gonna reveal it, but then that also begs the question, those in charge of these discoveries, are they gonna tell us, or are they going to say, no, that's too crazy? I don't want to be the one to assume that there's a pyramid on Antarctica. I'll just say that it was a natural formation. Is it going to be that type of thing like we talked about yesterday? So it might take a while for some of these discoveries to come out, but I do believe that there's a lot more hidden there than what we might assume, or what we've been told, or what we think. I think it's even more than just rainforests and islands. I think if we're allowed to have the information, I think in the near future we're going to find signs of civilization there. But again, that would fly in the face of a lot of evolutionary theory and a lot of, like humans didn't exist with the dinosaurs kind of stuff. And most scientists don't want to be the one to say something like that, because they're worried about, it's really pride, but they're worried about their own stature in the science community. So even if something like that is discovered, it might not be reported on, and even if it is reported on, it might be reinterpreted as something else. And we kind of saw that with that strange pyramid that was discovered in Antarctica. The scientists are saying that it's a natural formation, which it very well might be. But it also very well might be that they don't want to say it's a pyramid because they don't have direct evidence of that right now, and they don't want to be the ones that sound crazy because of their own ego. So, because I understand human nature a little bit as well as you do too, you understand it as well if you've ever met a human being, I kind of lean more on the, I could see this as a face-saving measure by those who don't want to be the crazy one to say that there could be signs of civilization, ancient civilization in Antarctica. But I do think that given enough time, I think we're going to discover that there's quite a bit of stuff there, that there's quite a bit of evidence. There was also a lost continent, a fragment of a lost continent that was discovered in Canada. So still up north, not quite Antarctica, but still up north. And I think these discoveries are going to keep being made like worldwide. I think we're going to keep seeing this stuff more and more frequently. But it says geologists have discovered part of an ancient lost continent by sifting through diamond samples from Canada's Baffin Island. By analyzing the samples, analysts identified part of the North Atlantic craton, a remnant of the Earth's ancient continental crust that stretched from Labrador to Scotland. An article on the University of British Columbia's website explains that experts were studying kimberlite rocks, which formed millions of years ago and were brought to the Earth's surface by geological forces. The samples from a De Beers Chidliak kimberlite province property in southern Baffin Island, however, have a mineral signature that corresponds to other parts of the craton. So here's a quote from geologist Maya Kopolova, told the website, quote, "The mineral composition of other portions of the North Atlantic craton is so unique, there was no mistaking it. It was easy to tie the pieces together. Adjacent ancient craters in northern Canada, in northern Quebec, northern Ontario, and in Nunavut have completely different mineralogies," end quote. Northern lights over the frozen landscape of Akshuyuk Pass in Ayutuk, man, these words, National Park on, is that Inuit? Is that some like an Eskimo word? On April 8th, 2017 in Baffin Island, there was apparently a photo, but it's no longer there. Other geological discoveries have been garnering attention recently. So last year, scientists announced the discovery of the world's deepest land canyon, thousands of feet below an ancient glacier, an Antarctic glacier. So there's a discovery there. And also what we're going to talk about next are these strange holes discovered off the California coast. I did look into this story here. It's really just the deep canyon they found. There wasn't anything particularly interesting about it. So I left that one out. But continuing on, the next thing that I wanted to look at here, that there was warm water found on the underside of Antarctica's Doomsday Glacier. So yeah, there's the glacier doomsday. This is from a lot of climate change stuff, but there's surprisingly warm water found there. What is warm water doing there, and could this actually be a recent thing? Now, of course, scientists are probably going to say it's always been there because they tend to think that the way the Earth is now, that's how it's always been. But what if this warm water was actually something new? What if it was warm at one time, but then got cold, but it's getting warm again? Because again, we have these birth pangs launching us into prophetic times. Some of that being new heavens and new earth, Edenic conditions. What if this is a birth pang of that? So it says an underwater robot named Icefin that has gone where no submersible has gone before to the underbelly of Antarctica's Doomsday Glacier has uncovered unusually warm temperatures there. The hunk of ice, officially known as the Thwaites Glacier, it's amazing how much surrounds this glacier, how many discoveries are surrounding this. Earned its ominous nickname because it's one of Antarctica's fastest melting glaciers. Of course, it's going to be a climate change thing. But even so, scientists were surprised to learn that waters at the ground line, the region where the glacier meets the sea, are more than 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Celsius, above the normal freezing temperatures, according to news reports. So David Holland, a lead researcher on the expedition and director of the Environmental Fluid Dynamics Laboratory at New York University, told the Chicago Tribune, quote, warm waters in this part of the world, as remote as they may seem, should serve as a warning to all of us about the potential dire changes to the planet brought about climate change. And of course, they got to make a political statement with it. It can't be anything else. But I can't fault them too much because I'm making more of a religious statement with it. So I guess I can't be too hypocritical about that. But the difference is one's true and one's not. So that's the difference. Of course, they have to make climate change. They're going to say that the reason this warm water is there is because we evil humans are polluting the earth and causing the earth to warm up, and we're seeing that in these cold climates, and that's why you have warm water there now. But what if it's not? What if it isn't that? I mean, there are other theories. There is a theory it could have always been there, but what if this is new, but it's part of a cycle? It's part of an ongoing cycle where now these colder parts of the world are shifting and becoming warmer. And again, could that type of thing lead us to the Edenic situation that we find ourselves in prophecy? I mean, it's almost like, Scripture talks about how the earth is cursed and it groans, and it groans in travail, and it's waiting for its day of restoration. What if this is like the earth almost trying to correct itself? Now, the earth isn't like an organism; it's not a conscious being; it's a rock. But what if it's trying to get back to its natural state, in a sense? It's like struggling and trying to get back to its natural state, and it comes in these weird ways, like warm water appearing where it shouldn't, or the poles shifting. It's like if you have if you have a ball on the table and you pick it up and drop it, well, the ball wants to get back to its natural state. So gravity is going to take over and it's going to fall to the table again and be there. It doesn't mean the ball is conscious. It doesn't mean that gravity is conscious. It doesn't mean that any of this is some kind of mystical thing. It's just natural processes. But what if there's something like that going on with the earth, where it's struggling and straining and trying to get back to the way that it was originally created to be? And like Scripture says, it's the earth itself. It's groaning and straining and waiting for that day that it's going to be restored. And what if this is an example of that? I mean, it's absolutely amazing to think about. Something else that might be another example of it, and this one was just weird. So I didn't know, I didn't know what specific example this would be. It's just strange. But what if this is another one of these things that's a callback to an original, ancient Earth that was worked in a totally different way? There have been thousands of strange holes discovered off of the California coast that have just sprung up. Now, I don't know what purpose that would have served in the ancient world, but actually, maybe this is to let the water front that was from below up. And maybe in the ancient world, these holes would have been all over the place. These types of things, or they're almost like craters. But let's look at this story, because it's so strange, and it again, with the idea in mind that what if the Earth is straining and struggling to get back to its original creation, the way that it was originally intended to run. It's like when you have a car that won't work and you turn the ignition and the engine is struggling to go back, to turn. The engine is struggling and struggling and struggling, but it's broke and it can't get there until it gets fixed, until it gets restored. What if the Earth is doing that right now? Scientists have discovered thousands of mysterious holes in the seabed off Big Sur, California. Researchers from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, or MBARI, M-B-A-R-I, were surveying the deep seafloor off Big Sur when they discovered the strange holes. The larger holes, described as pockmarks, are on average about 600 feet across and 16 feet deep. In a statement, Mbari noted that it first discovered some of the pockmarks in 1999. However, subsequent surveys by Mbari and other organizations have revealed over 5,200 pockmarks spread across 500 square miles. That's a lot of pockmarks in that space. Thousands of smaller holes, known as microdepressions, have been discovered. Researchers have spotted around 15,000 microdepressions, which are on average 11 feet across and 3 feet deep. So while they call it microdepressions, there's really nothing micro about it the way we would think of micro. We think of micro, we think of, the indentation that a pebble dropping on the ground would create. These are 11 feet across and 3 feet deep, so they're pretty big. The discovery was described by MBARI researchers Eve Lunston and Charles Paul at the fall meeting of the American Geophysical Union in San Francisco. Quote, and this is from Lunston in a statement, quote, "The pockmarks and microdepressions in this area are both holes in the seafloor that occur in softer sediments, but they are morphologically distinct. The cause and persistence of the pockmarks still remain a mystery," so they don't even know what's causing this and why these persist. "But we find no evidence they were created from gas or fluid in the seafloor in the recent past. The microdepressions are recently formed," because a lot of times when something like this is created, they'll usually say that it's some type of gas or fluid that's coming up, but they're saying that there's not any evidence of that for this. So what could it be? The microdepressions are recently formed erosional features. They are not incipient pockmarks. Overall, a lot more work needs to be done to understand how all these features were formed, and this work is in progress. Scientists are keen to understand how the holes formed in the seabed because the area where they were found is the site of a proposed wind farm. So here you got a map of the seafloor off Big Sur showing a pockmark and then the micro depressions. So if you imagine these micro depressions are 11 feet across, think about how big this pockmark is. And there's over 5,000 of these things. In a separate study revealed at the fall meeting of American Geophysical Union, researchers gave fresh insight into the site of a nuclear battlefield by mapping test craters and sunken warships at Bikini Atoll in the Pacific. Here's a close-up view of a microdepression showing trash, rock, seafloor animals, and fish. So there's an actual picture of it. And last year, scientists announced the discovery of a stunning volcanic lost world off the coast of Tasmania. I did look into that one as well. It wasn't as interesting. Basically that sentence right there is the headline. It is the whole story. But yeah, these microdepressions and these pockmarks, what's causing this? They say it's not gas or fluid coming up. So what is coming up? And this could go into all sorts of territories. I mean, we could talk about hollow earth stuff. We could talk about possible civilizations living under the earth and all of this stuff. But I mean, for these types of impressions to be created, I mean, either something is falling down and creating them, although this is, there's water all around, so what could do that? Or it's something coming up and these indentations are left behind by the sediment resettling, filling in the hole of whatever came up. So that one I don't have any kind of real answer or theory about. I just think it was weird, and I thought I would tell you about it and see maybe what you think about it. But yeah, so it seems like I really believe like what Scripture says about like the earth straining and groaning and struggling and basically waiting for its restoration. I believe that in a sense it's kind of poetic, but I believe that it's literally happening. And again, it's not like the earth is a conscious being that's like actually waiting consciously for something. It's not that. It's, again, think of an engine that's struggling to turn over. It still tries. It's still the engine, when you turn the key, it still tries to operate correctly, but even when it sounds like it's trying, it's still not perfect. And I think that's what the Earth is doing now. So what's amazing to think about is what it's going to be like when this finally does all get restored. When Jesus Christ finally does come on the scene and fix the engine, repair the engine. When the whole thing is finally restored and it's back to its original creation. And again, we do get some information on that, about that in the book of Revelation, and that's a good note to end on before we go to Q&A. But it says, again, then I saw a new heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. Why is there no more sea? Well, we talked about that. Talks a lot about the New Jerusalem here too. But then we also get the river of life. Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb, through the middle of the street of the city. Also, on either side of the river, the tree of life and its 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. No longer will there be anything accursed, but the throne of God and the Lamb will be in it, and his servants will worship him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. And night will be no more. They will need no light of lamp for sun, for the Lord God will be their light, and they will reign forever and ever. So that's absolutely amazing. That's what we have to look forward to. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely excited about that. I cannot wait for that to be the case. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. We can go to Q&A now, because I want to hear what you have to say. Even if you don't have a question, you just have kind of a comment about some of this stuff, how you think all of this works. I'd love to hear it. And then while you're getting your questions in the chat, also tell me too if this live stream, if you were with us yesterday, tell me if this live stream is working better. I did some stuff with the settings. Tell me if the image quality is good. Is the audio quality good? Has it been buffering at all? Have you had any interruptions or any problems so far? Let me know. While you're getting your questions and comments ready, I need to tell you about Daily Renegade and why you should be a member today. You should definitely be a member, because not only do you get these live streams and stuff, you get those, but you get access to all of our shows. You get access to, we have over a dozen. I think we have like 15 unique original shows right now. Looks like at the moment some updates are being done to the website, which is good. So right now, this is what the website looks like on my end. We get some coming soon things. This is only because we're doing some updates. We're updating the website all the time. We try to do it fast, and we do it at certain times, at night, so it doesn't mess with you guys too much when you want to be able to navigate the site. But you can still get access to all of our shows. So you have a whole list of shows here. This is if you're a member, this is where you want to get your content from. But you, of course, get Peck Report, and you get some of this stuff for free on YouTube and stuff, but if you want the full episodes, this is where to go. DailyRenegade.com. You go to member content, you become a member, and then you get full episodes of all of this stuff. And you get access to the Vault as well, which, again, is it's like our version of YouTube, but it doesn't get censored. So it's not just our own original content, but it's other people's things as well that they've allowed us to repost on our site. So for plans and pricing, it's very easy, $10 a month or $100 a year. And this $100 a year, that is your best value, because you get 2 months for free that way. You only got to pay for it once. You don't have to think about it again. Also, with your membership, you get access to a whole bunch of articles that we're updating all the time. We're always adding new articles. So it's not like once a month you're going to get a new online magazine. It's basically every day you're going to get some new content. Some days there won't be an article, but then some days you'll get like 3 or 4 articles. So so it balances out. It averages out to be about every day you're going to get some new articles. So it's like it's like the best magazine subscription for the price that you could possibly get, but you also get all of these videos. You get the podcast versions. You get a lot with a membership to dailyrenegade.com. So become a member today. Again, it's only $10 a month, $100 a year. Real quick, some people have asked how Nathan is doing. My 6-year-old son Nathan, he's battling leukemia right now. He's in remission. He's doing well, but it's very expensive, obviously. And the donate page at Daily Renegade, people have asked where to donate for Nathan. This is where, and there's several options. dailyrenegade.com/donate. There are GoFundMes here. There's a P.O. Box. There's a PayPal. There's a Patreon. There's several ways that you can donate if you want to donate. Every donation that we get through Daily Renegade goes to Nathan. So you can keep that in mind. And if for whatever reason, if you only want to donate to Daily Renegade and you want it specifically for the ministry side of it, just make a note of it when you donate. But you can keep this in mind too. Even if you have that in mind, I want to donate $20 to Daily Renegade. Well, if you do donate it through here, that $20 goes to Nathan, but that's $20 less that we have to take from Daily Renegade revenue to give to Nathan. So in that way, you still are donating to Daily Renegade. So it helps everybody. But if you want to donate, that's where to do it. So last thing. We have many wonderful things. We have kratom, CBD, and this substance here that I can't mention because YouTube will delete this video if I do. But it's purely legal. It's a good thing to clean your counters with. You don't have to deal with cancer-causing chemicals. We also have an ad down here for CBD and kratom, Tropic Health. There's another one up here. But all of this stuff, these are Josh Peck approved companies. This is stuff that I have approved. I take kratom and CBD all the time. I take it every day, really, because I'm a chronic pain sufferer, and it really can help. So you can go to dailyrenegade.com and get that there. Those companies are the best of the best in my opinion. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, get a membership, dailyrenegade.com. You can become a member today and get access to all of our shows. Now's the time to do it because we might have to increase our prices. If we do, it's only going to be for new members, not existing members. So get it now while you can, while it's cheap. Plus, you can, if you're wondering how you can come up with the money, ditch Netflix. Get rid of your Netflix subscription. They have made it clear that they hate Christians. I mean, they're putting movies and shows about gay Jesus and stuff like that on their platform. Why would you give a company like that your money? Instead, come over to Daily Renegade where we love you, we don't hate you, and you can actually get some really good, solid theological content that is totally family friendly. You can invite the kids. You can you all can watch this together, and it's great for fellowship. We all get to fellowship together, but it's good. You can have church right at home with us. So we hope that you do that. dailyrenegade.com. All right, let's get to let's see, we got Noel saying, I ordered the CBD Pure from Daily Renegade. It's great. Yes, it is. Let's get to Q&A while we still have a little bit of the live stream here left. Let's see, I'm scrolling up and then scrolling up to see where questions start. I probably should have made a mark somewhere in here. I'm still learning this new streaming program. So, okay, somebody's saying that the stream worked better, a few hiccups, but it worked better, much better than yesterday. Looks great. Awesome. That is good to hear. I stopped once or stalled for 1 minute, but it came back right away. Okay, good. Okay, I keep hearing folks talking about the 3 days of darkness. Then I heard 10 days, and even the government a while back saying to prepare for power outages. Any thought on this? This comes from Juanita. Yes, so the 10 days of darkness, 3 days of darkness thing, that has been it's a total lie. That has been just this meme that's been cycling around the internet every couple of months for the past 4 years or so. And anytime anything happens, this comes back up, and there's no truth in it. There's no substantiating evidence for it. There's no reason to think that this is actually gonna or that NASA is like saying that it's gonna happen. So with the 10 days of darkness or the 3 days of darkness stuff, now we know that in the book of Revelation there will come a time where there are days of darkness, but that's not what this meme is talking about that goes around. And it's like, articles are written, but they're all totally fake. It's fake news. No, that stuff is not true. There are prophecies, and could there be birth pangs for that prophecy? Sure, of course there could be. I think that those probably will come in the forms of like solar eclipses and things. But I know the articles that you're referencing; those are fake. Now, when it comes to preparing for power outages, as of right now, because I've heard this too, that there could be power outages or internet outages for a number of days. I don't know. I don't know if those are true or not, but I will say it is always best to prepare for that. Because power outages can happen no matter what's going on. So it's always best to be prepared. Prepare in a way, just assume that you're not going to have power. So even if that means that you have a grill in your backyard, buy some extra charcoal. So at least you can cook food on the grill, things like that can be helpful. So I would say, while I don't have any information if there's going to be power outages or internet shutdowns, I would say it's very smart to prepare as if there will be. Because you can't go wrong there. Okay. Great work, Josh. Thank you, Isaac. Much appreciated. From Manitoba. Awesome. Let's see. Any other questions? Karen is saying the GoFundMe wouldn't take my credit card. I'll try again next week. Sorry to hear that, but yeah, so because there's a wide variety of credit cards, and that's why at dailyrenegade.com/donate we have a variety of different ways that people can donate. So if one thing doesn't work for them, or if they're not comfortable with one thing or another, they can use one of the other things. So again, there's a direct PayPal, there's a PO box, there's GoFundMe, there's Patreon. There's a lot of different options there for you, but yeah, sorry you're having problems with your with the credit card not working on the GoFundMe. Let's see. Okay. Oh, question, Mr. Peck. Your thoughts on the flood as it pertains to possible aquatic Nephilim? Would they still be in existence? I have no clue. I have no idea. Just in pure speculation land, sure. Why not? Maybe. Because it does say in I think Jubilees, the book of Jubilees, that the angels didn't only sin against the man, but also like against like animals and birds and things. So it would be reasonable to say that it's at least possible. Now, is there any evidence of it? Not that I'm aware of. I'm aware of zero evidence of that. And then there have, and I don't really know what this is all about, but there have been some that have taken this really far, and like in open church services, this seems to be more on the charismatic side. They'll pray against like this demonic underworld land of mermaids and things, and I don't know what that is really all about. It could be possible. All sorts of things happened. I just personally am not aware of any direct evidence of it. But yeah, again, Jubilees does say they sinned against animals as well. So sure. All right. Oh, and questions don't have to have something to do with what we talked about tonight. They can be on anything. So somebody, Miternarium 9818. Hi, Josh. This isn't exactly about what you talked about in this stream, but I was wondering if you've heard about David Wilcock or Corey Good, and if so, what do you think about what they teach? Yeah, I have heard of them. I think they are total frauds. I think they're total, especially Corey Good. I think they're total hucksters. I don't think anything they say is true. They make a lot of claims. They tell a lot of science fiction stories, basically, and the stories themselves are really entertaining. They're really interesting. They're really cool, but they provide zero evidence. There's no evidence, and I have seen a lot of stuff on both of these guys. They even both hosted a show together on Gaia, I think. and I watched several episodes of that. They're really interesting stories, but they're expecting people to believe it without providing any evidence. And then, David Wilcock does a lot of channeling and just a lot of demonic satanic stuff like that. But I will say, I talked about this with my co-author Stephen Bancars, and he's been following David Wilcock, not following as in like studying under him or anything, but he's just been following David Wilcock for a while because David Wilcock preaches a lot of New Age stuff, and Steve and I preach against New Age stuff, so it's important for us to know what these guys are saying. But Steve had reasons to believe that David Wilcock might start to lean on the side, at least like a little bit closer to the Christian side. So, and I, no one really knows what's in his heart, but we do know that he does, David Wilcock does teach a lot of lies. So does Corey Good. David Wilcock, I think, is more dangerous because they're spiritual lies. There are things that can get people eternally damned. So the solution to that is to not hate him, but to pray for him. To pray that Jesus will present himself to these people and so they can get saved. So, but yeah, I am familiar with them. I think they're total frauds. Let's see. Looking for more. There's a lot of and these are cool comments. You guys have like really interesting things to say too, like about earthquakes and stuff. And you guys are having your conversation in the chat too. So I don't want to just totally recite everything there and repeat all of it. But let's see. Question: update on locusts. I missed the info in the last night's stream. Are they still going strong, forging ahead? Yeah. So just quickly, they're saying that this will be the worst locust swarm, the worst locust plague, really, in decades. And you can actually go back and watch that stream if you just look on the YouTube channel. It's in our videos, and you can find it there. But yeah, basically it's really bad now, and it's going to get worse, and nobody has any ideas really on how to stop it. So what we need to keep in mind, a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters live in that area as well as other people. So pray for our brethren for sure. Pray that God gets them through this, and also pray that this can be used as a witnessing opportunity, because there's a lot of non-Christians in the area too, and it would be great if the Christians that are there, that with all of them dealing with this locust plague, maybe that can open some doors to talk about how good Jesus is. So keep that in prayer. Is the Defender 2020 conference still on? As far as I know, it is. I haven't heard any news on it being postponed or canceled. So as far as I know, it's still on. But what the future will hold, who really knows? And I think it's not till August. So hopefully by then things will have calmed down. This is supposed to be a really good one. So we'll see. Thoughts on Betelgeuse going to supernova, being part of Orion and pyramids are aligned? Could this be pre-flood sign from the Watchers? If Betelgeuse does go supernova, that would be a major sign in the sky. And there's nothing, there's nothing like horoscopy or pagan about that. It just matters on how you interpret it. But Genesis does tell us that stars in the sky and stuff are for signs and seasons. Like signs is a part of that. So if that does go supernova, I'm really interested in that, because I'm not one that really says that every night I have a prophetic dream, but there was one that I had. There was one prophetic dream that I believe was totally prophetic. It was an answer to prayer. I was going through a time where I was this was years ago. I was coming out of New Age. I was getting back into Christianity, and I was looking into prophetic things, and I was just really confused about a lot of stuff, because I still had all this New Age stuff rattling up in my head, and I just wanted the truth. And so I prayed, and I asked God, what is the end really going to be like? I was also going through rapture crisis. I was going through all the different rapture scenarios, and at the time I thought it was really important that I had to find out which one is the real one. I've come to the conclusion that nobody can know for sure until it happens. But at the time it really bothered me that I didn't know. And so I cycled through these different, like I cycled through them. There was a time in my life where I've had each of the rapture beliefs. But so I was just I was just confused about how to even look at prophecy and really what to do with it. So I asked God, what is it really what is the end really gonna be like? And I had this 3-part dream. I don't know the interpretation of all of it, and the only reason that I haven't really talked about it much is because, it's not that I don't want an interpretation, because I do. There are parts of it I believe I know what it means, and there are other parts that I have no idea. And it would be nice if there was a Christian who had a Holy Spirit gift of being able to interpret that stuff. It could tell me what it means. What I'm afraid of, though, is if I tell what the dream is, I'm going to get hundreds of emails from people, all of them saying that God told him this, the Holy Spirit told him to tell me this, and they're all going to be different interpretations, and I'm not going to know what to do with that. So I haven't really talked about it much, but I'll say part of it. Maybe one of these days I'll do a live stream on it and just tell what the whole dream was. Maybe a smart way to do it is tell the dream and leave out a couple of details and do basically, what happened in the book of Daniel. Like, okay, if you have the real interpretation, you'll be able to tell me the parts of the dream that I left out. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. I haven't found a real good way to talk about it yet. But part of that dream did involve a new type of like a new thing showing up in the sky, like a star, like a new star. I don't know if it was like literally, like scientifically a star or not, but it was just one day. All these news outlets were reporting on this blue star that just appeared in the sky one day. And they were all reporting on it, and there were different theories about it and stuff like that. There was a lot more to it than just that, but I'm just going to leave it there. So part of that, that dream, I do believe that was God actually giving me an answer. I don't dream prophecy like often. I think that's once or twice has it ever happened where I actually felt, okay, that is God. That's an actual prophetic thing. And this was one of them. And I remember every detail of the dream so vividly in my mind, and this was years ago when this happened. I usually can't. I usually, like any other normal dream, I usually can't remember like that. But so if the Betelgeuse star, if it does go supernova and it shows up, I even think I don't remember if it was this specifically, but I think that I remember reading somewhere a couple of years after I had that dream. I might be wrong on this, but I think it said that if Betelgeuse did go supernova, that to us it would appear blue. I don't know if that's true. I'd have to look into that again. But if it did, I would consider that a prophetic sign. That would definitely be something big. That would be signifying something's about to happen. I don't know exactly what, but I would definitely consider that prophetic if something like that happens. Okay. Let's look for more questions. I kind of went on quite a while about that. Is Whole Tones music new age? It uses frequencies, but the maker says he's a Christian, and I just want to know if it's not new age, I would like to order. I don't know anything about it or the maker, but I'm very cautious of people who call themselves Christians and then well, it depends. There are Christians that talk about frequencies and things, and there's nothing new age about it. But there are so-called Christians who actually are preaching new age, whether they know it or not, they are, and they say frequencies and they mean something totally different. So I don't know what whole tones is. It's something I would have to research, but on that kind of stuff, just by the way that it just sounds, I'm immediately suspicious of it. I can't really say anything beyond that, but I would just look into it. Just because somebody says they're a Christian, anybody can say that. There's a lot of New Age teachers that say that. Actually, most New Age teachers say that that they hold some form of Christianity or they're a Christian in some form or another. But I would have to look more into it, or you should. But if you have any hesitation about it, it's probably safe to just back off of it. But definitely look into it, research it, see if there is anything New Age in there, or not. But yeah, just immediately, like my spidey sense is throwing up some red flags on that. So I would be cautious. Is coronavirus a sign of the end times? We talked a little bit about that yesterday, Jack. And I don't. I believe I believe it's a birth pang. I mean, we read in Revelations about pestilence, plague, that kind of stuff. I don't think coronavirus is like the exact plague that the exact pestilence that's talked about in Revelation, but I think it is a birth pang leading to that. So in that sense, yes, but at the same time, there have always been plagues. We have had plagues for a long time. So in that sense, it's nothing new. So it really depends on your perspective and how you look at it. But again, it does seem like these things are happening more frequently and in convergence with all these other things. Yesterday we talked about earthquakes and volcanoes and all sorts of other things. In that convergence, that's rare. That doesn't happen all the time. So yeah, I do think it's a sign of end times. Let's see. Looking for more questions. I have a quick question. What do you think about the theory of the big trees that are now in Wyoming but look like huge, gigantic tree stumps? From Karen. I haven't really looked into it. I'll be honest with you. I was immediately suspicious of it because the flat Earth community really grabbed onto that, and to me, it felt like this was their new thing that they were trying to get into. I mean, it was like the new trend or the new. The new cool thing to be trendy with, and I mean, every year, every few months, there's something like that, and it felt like people were trying to make this into that. So I didn't really have a reason to look into it. But at the same time, because I didn't look into it, I can't say that there's no validity to it. I can't say that it's not true at all. So my answer would be I don't know. But the way that it was handled from the majority of people who were talking about it, it just totally turned me off to it completely. It just felt like, all right, well, we're the flat Earth stuff, that's getting kind of boring. It's time to move on to something new. Hey, how about big trees? It just kind of felt like that. And I always have to preface this. I don't really have to. I should quit prefacing it. But I'm not saying every flat earther is like that. I have a couple of flat Earth friends. I'm actually going on a show tomorrow on Robbie Davidson's show tomorrow night. And I'm actually looking forward to that. Me and Robbie had a really good conversation over Facebook Messenger the other day. He's going to come on this channel, and we're going to talk about coronavirus stuff. I'm coming on his channel, and we're going to talk about stuff because he doesn't bash me for not being a flat earther, so I like him. I mean, he doesn't tell me I'm not a Christian if I don't believe the Earth is flat. He and I were mainly talking about just how important it is for brothers and sisters in Christ to love each other, because Christ is the most important thing, not the shape of the earth, and I can really get behind that. So yeah, I always got to preface it. Not every flat earther is like that, but just the way the big trees thing was handled, the way that it was presented, it was like, you could be one of the cool kids too if you believe this thing, and like I was totally turned off to it because of that. But I mean, I'm not saying everybody's like that, and I'm not even saying that you shouldn't look into it. I mean, there could be something there. I don't know. So that might be something to look into. Whatev is saying questions. Thoughts on Netanyahu referencing marking doorposts with blood of the lamb in response to COVID? Last question. I have not read anything about that. Isn't it just the Passover thing? I mean, don't they? I would assume, don't they do that every Passover? Now, what is strange though is there are some Orthodox rabbis that are saying that this Passover is going to usher in the Messiah, because this is the Passover where the whole world is observing it, because everybody's quarantined because of coronavirus. So everybody's observing the Sabbath that falls on the same week or day or whatever is Passover. And so because of that, I guess in the Midrash or the Talmud or one of those books, I guess there's some prophecy about the whole world observing the Sabbath of a Passover or something, and then that's a sign of the Messiah. Of course, I don't believe in those books, but they believe in them. And it would be easy for an anti-Messiah figure to assume the role of Messiah, because these guys are really desperate for their Messiah to show up, and so it would be easy for somebody to fulfill that role, and maybe that person's the Antichrist. And we've talked about that before. It's good for us to know what they believe, because their beliefs will dictate their actions, and their actions have a lot of consequences. You know, there's a lot of things that can come from that. It's also important to know what they believe, so we know best how to witness to them. Because we're not called to hate these people. I mean, it really drives me nuts, the anti-Semitism that has infected the church. And then that's like a trendy thing now, hating Jewish people. That's like a trendy thing now. It drives me nuts. It's like, look, we're supposed to love and pray for even our enemies, even when they persecute us. No Jews right now are persecuting me. I'm not being beaten and slaughtered because I'm a Christian from some Orthodox Jew in the Middle East that's looking for a Messiah. I mean, the fact that they're looking for a Messiah is a good thing. They're desperate for one. So let's go tell them who Jesus is, so they know who their Messiah is. Let's love them enough to not want them to burn in hell for all of eternity. So I do not understand this trend, this trend of just bashing, just absolutely bashing Jewish people in the way that like Palestinians do, or in the way that like Muslim, the really militant Muslims do. That has no place in my opinion. That has no place in Christianity. I don't understand it. I think it's just a channel for hate, and where we're called to love, and we should love these people enough to want to witness to them in the most effective way possible, so we can call them brother and sister in Christ, so we can be in heaven with them someday. And and I think we can witness to them more effectively if we know what they believe, because if we know what they believe, then we can get prepared ahead of time to have some counter arguments, and have some logical debates if we're ever in an opportunity where we can talk to one of these people. So, or even do videos. You never know what videos people are watching. I mean, these guys could be watching this video right now for all I know. So that's why it's good to know that stuff. Okay. Let's see. Looking for more questions. If we don't have any more, then we'll call it a night. Let's see. PJ saying, great show, love and blessings to all. Stay safe, healthy, and pray for everyone. We're souls in a body. Learn to love, then we go home, right? Amen. That is correct. You have a great night as well. Let's see. Sorry for I try not to let too much like silence go by while I'm like looking for things, because it's just boring to sit there and wait for me to find a question, So I try to, but then at the same time while I'm talking, it's hard for me to read. So it's kind of this weird like back and forth thing that I try to do. Let's see. Amen, Josh. Let's see. Who cares what shape, round, square, triangle, God made it? Amen. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, same here. And like I've always admitted with the flat Earth stuff, I could be wrong on that. I don't believe the Earth is flat, but I could be wrong. I don't care enough about it to get mad about it, and that seems to be what triggers the militant flat earthers that say that you're not a Christian or you don't believe in the Bible if you don't believe the Earth is flat. I think they're triggered by it because I don't react the same way they do, because they're projecting. They're projecting onto you what they believe, the way they believe you'll react. So when you don't give them that, it drives them nuts, and they can't stand it. Because you're not feeding their ego, you're not feeding their pride, you're not feeding their want to feel persecuted. They people that act like that, they want to feel persecuted, so they want to bash and insult you, so then you will in turn insult them back, so then they can feel persecuted, and they can feel validated, and they can have their ego. It's a whole bunch of pride stuff involved in that. And it's not only flat Earth. There's any theory is like that. Like any theory has people that will treat it that way. Flat Earth is one of the most prevalent examples. But that in itself doesn't invalidate flat Earth. Like I've said, I could be wrong. There would be a lot of science that would have to be re-explained. But I'm not. Who knows? Who knows? All I'll say is, I haven't been to space. I haven't seen the Earth from space, so I could be wrong on that. But there are a lot of misconceptions too, like just when I'll just give you one. When people say, well, how about take a picture of the Earth without a fisheye lens then? That would be impossible because the Earth is so big. Like the way that camera, I wish if I had them with me right now, I could show you. Well, I could go get one. Okay, the way that camera lenses work, the wider field of view that you have, like the more that you want to see in the image, the more fisheye the lens has to be just to be able to get all of that picture. Now, the more flat it is, the more flat the lens is, the closer in and more detailed of a thing you can get. So there's no way there's no way to really take a picture of the Earth without and without some kind of curve on the lens. I mean, every lens is going to have that anyway. Without some curve. That, and also they say that it's photoshopped. It's not photoshopped. It's I mean technically, but it's not photoshopped in the way that it's not like manufactured. It's not just created out of thin air. The way that they take these pictures, it's a series of pictures because the Earth is so big and there's so much to take pictures of. And then it's sort of like a puzzle. They gotta put the pieces together. They got to put it together. It's sort of like that. It takes these like strips of photos, and then they got to put it together later. That's just how the camera operates. And if you don't like it, you can invent a new camera that works completely different than any other camera does. I mean, that's like saying well, that digital image that you took of your dog is fake because that's just pixels. That's all it is. That's just little dots of color. That's not even real. It's like the same as saying that. So there are a lot of misconceptions. It's just the evidence that I've heard to prove flat Earth. I just don't find those arguments convincing. Okay. Let's see. And again, I'm not throwing all flat earthers under the bus there, and I'm not trying to make fun of all of them. The ones that have good attitude about it, I love them, and I love that they're actually looking into stuff and questioning things and doing it humbly, not doing it. The people I'm really railing against here are the prideful ones, the ones that they use this as a way to wield their own pride as a weapon against everybody else. Like that's what I really can't stand. The people who are looking into it and are just humble Christians that love other Christians regardless what they believe about the shape of the Earth. I love those people. I think that is such a good attitude, and if that's the attitude, then I'm glad that they're looking into flat Earth, and I'm glad if they believe that, and if it brings them closer to God, I love it. I think that's great. I want to thank you for doing this again, Josh. Excellent job. Thank you, Karen. Do you believe the monoliths were pre-flood? What monolith? Are you talking about like the giant structures? Yes. Yes, I do. And the reason is because they seem to be I'm thinking about research that I did years ago, so I might be piecing some of this together wrong. But I think they dated it to either around the same time or earlier than the Sphinx. And the Sphinx has water erosion on it that you would expect from a flood. Now, that could have been a local flood, but it would have been a pretty disastrous local flood. And so if that water erosion is showing signs of the flood, the actual flood, and so that would mean the Sphinx was pre-flood. And if the monoliths are dated around the same time or earlier than the Sphinx itself, then there you go. Now, of course, that's not mainstream. Like mainstream doesn't put the Sphinx that far back. But there was I wrote about this in Cherubim Chariots, and I believe it made it into Unraveling the Multiverse, those books, which if you want to get them, you can go to skywatchtv.com. Cherubim Chariots is at, I think I have that listed at dailyrenegade.com. But mainstream will say that the Sphinx is not that old. But there were some research or some actual scientists that I referenced in that book that it's at least the possibility they could be that old. So I wrote about that in there. It's not definitive proof or anything, but it's something interesting to think about. Let's see. Okay, a lot of people calling for prayer. People saying right. Okay, yeah, pyramids, Baalbek. Yeah, the Great Pyramid too. Yeah, I do believe that, like the Great Pyramid, possibly the Sphinx, probably Baalbek. I do think a lot of that was pre-flood. Definitely. Okay. All right. Well, it looks like things are winding down here. I am starting to get tired as well. So I want to thank all of you for joining me on another Josh Peck Live. This has been really fun. This has been a fun night. I'm glad that the buffering seemed to be working better for people. And thank you for the excellent questions. Thank you for the awesome comments. I didn't get to read through, mention all of them on the show, but I read through them, and you guys are awesome. I love the way you guys think, and it's always good to fellowship with you, and just really appreciate all you guys. Love you guys. Thank you so much. We'll keep doing this. We'll keep it up. So yeah, this has been Josh Peck Live. Again, make sure you go to dailyrenegade.com and get a membership today while you can. Now is the time to do it. Also pick up some CBD and Kratom while you're there. It'll help you out a lot. It's really good stuff. And there's just all sorts of benefits. So make sure you do that, especially now. Now is the time to stock up on that. The FDA, DEA, they're trying to shut it down anyway. And also just people are buying it a lot, so it's going to be hard to keep in stock. So yeah, all that being said, love you all. Thank you so much for joining me. And till next, I don't know exactly when we'll do this next time, but like I said, I will be on Robbie Davidson's show tomorrow night, Saturday night. I think it starts at like 9 Central or something like that. I'll post the link on my Facebook, so make sure you join us there. It's going to be fun. But yeah, and then whenever we do the next live stream, if you're subscribed, you'll get a notification. So make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. Click the bell for notifications. YouTube still might not notify you because they do that. That's why I just keep saying the best place to go to dailyrenegade.com and be a member. You can even be a member for free. A paid membership is where you get all the perks, but you can still you can sign up for a free membership and still enjoy the website. You just won't have all the perks and all the full shows, and you won't have the whole website unlocked to you. We're also developing an app right now for Daily Renegade, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of things to look forward to. All right, everybody, thank you so much, and until next time, love you all. Take care. God bless.